Okay, in this video what we're going to do is we are going to touch on the Debian installer, or DI, and we'll go ahead and get booting up here. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to go kind of in depth into this installer, because a lot of people think that Debian is hard to install, and for somebody that's never seen this installer before, you're probably right. The name of the installer is Debian installer. It's not like Calamari or anything like that, or Anaconda, which is Red Hat's. This one is called Debian installer, or you might see it abbreviated as D-I. So we're going to go and get started. You can choose the graphical install, or you can choose the regular install. And there is no difference technologically, except for with the graphic install, you can use your mouse. It's point and click. Put a check mark in a box, click a button. With install, it's just all straight keyboard shortcuts. There is no mouse, and I will walk through that as we go. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit install, and we'll let this get started. I'm going to go through every single field on here. So if you decide that you want to try Debian, this is Trixie that we're using here, the upcoming stable version that is due to be released at any minute. But this installer is kind of old. It goes back a long way. So if you still use stable 12 or anything like that, this is probably going to still be pretty much exactly the same. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to choose English, which is the language I'm speaking. United States, where I live, American English. You have to give this a second to load up. There we go. Just like with any other installer, it's got to do its own little boot up thing, gather information. It's going to download packages, because this is what's known as a net install. This image is less than a gig in size. It is it's pretty small. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, and this only shows up if you have more than one. If you only have one network interface, it's going to default to that one, because it's going to assume that's the one you mean. With this, I can choose my wired or my wireless. So we're going to go ahead and choose wired, because I'm lazy. And what it's going to do here is it's detecting all the data that's on it, like your IP address and things like that. It's going to go ahead and reconfigure itself. On this screen, you can choose your host name. This is the name of the computer. You need to have a unique host name for every computer you have on your network. We're just going to keep this as Debian, but it's plain text. You can call it whatever you want, no spaces. If you have a domain, you just put the domain in this. Okay, on this screen right here, I'm going to save you some reading up there at the top, or you can read along if you want, because I'm basically going to tell you the same thing it says. Linux defaults to the first user you add has sudo access, and the root user is disabled. With Debian, it gives you the option. If you set a root user password right here, the first user that is added will not have sudo access. They'll just be a regular unprivileged user, and they won't be able to, use the sudo command. So for this to act like any normal distribution, you need to leave the root password blank. If you want to add a root password, you can use that with the password command later on. So we're just going to hit enter a couple times. And now we're to our user. Okay, so now I just choose my time zone. This goes off of the country you picked earlier. That's why there's only American time zones in here. If you chose that you were in someplace else, it would default to those time zones. Loading some more. Like I said, this is a net installer. It's got to pull all this information from the internet. So that's why it downloads a little bit, asks you a few questions, downloads a little bit, and goes from there. So this screen here, there are only 4 options, but this turns into a tree really fast. And depending on which option you choose will depend on the context of the next screen. So if I wanted to use the largest continuous free space, it will do exactly that. It will take whatever's free, what's hasn't already been partitioned and allocated to another operating system, and try to install itself on that. We can do entire disk. We can do entire disk setup with LVM or with LVM and encryption. If you chose this option here, this will have you create a boot password. This is excellent for laptops because what it does is it'll encrypt the drive. And it uses LUKS, is what it's called, LUKS. And you have to put that password in just to boot the computer up. And then after you boot it up, it's going to ask you for your regular login password. That's to get you onto the desktop. Again, this is great for portable devices, especially laptops. And then this bottom option down here is manual. So we're going to choose that one this time around, manual. All right, so I do have Linux already on it. So let me go ahead and kill this real quick. I'm going to delete these. And I'll go through each of the options again. Delete, sorry. I was like, why was it still there? I picked done and not delete. Delete. Okay, so there we go. So now we got two drives. We got the main, we got one drive here and this other drive right here. Actually, we are going to go back. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to talk you through some options, but also at the same time, I'm going to pick a less than normal way of doing this. So in the end, what we're going to end up with is the regular system is going to be on this 256 gig drive here, and then this 500 gig drive is going to be home. And the reason why you want data segregation is because what happens if you fill up your home partition? What happens if you were to put everything on this 256 gig drive here and you try to put 250 gigs of music on your computer? Well, your hard drive will fill up, and after your hard drive fills up, it won't boot. It crashes, it's unstable, that kind of thing. But if you had all of your home directories and your movies and your pictures and everything on a separate drive, then from the root of the file system, you could fill that home up all the way, and it's not going to crash your system. Your system's still going to be stable because it still has plenty of room to boot. You won't be able to download anything anymore, but at least that's a solvable problem. You still have a working system. And with Linux, you can mount a hard drive or a partition on any empty directory. It doesn't matter where it's at. It doesn't have to be a top-level directory. You can have home, Scott, first directory, second directory, third directory, 9, 10, the 100th directory, and still put an empty drive on there. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to hit enter, and then we're going to create a new partition. And this one's actually going to be our boot partition. So I'm just going to set that at 1 gig. It will not fill up a 1 gig, but I have the room, so I'm going to go ahead and give it. Okay, and this is going to be our EFI system partition. You can follow along, but if I'm going too fast for you, you can go ahead and pause, slow down the playback, or whatever you need to do. So once that's on there, I need to make sure this is bootable. And then I'm going to go ahead and select done with that partition. Now we're going to create another one. This computer has 8 gigs of RAM in it, so I don't need a whole bunch of swap space, but I'm going to go ahead and give it 2 gigabytes anyway. Beginning, and we're going to set this to swap. Does not need to be bootable, and we're done with that. A quick rule of thumb with swap, and this will vary depending on who you ask. You can ask 10 people and get 11 different answers. What I do, in my experience, is I will give it the same amount of swap as it has RAM up to 2 gigabytes. And then I usually just stop right there. I don't need more than 2 gigs of swap. If I have 8 gigs of RAM or 16 or 64. This is a spoiler in an upcoming video. We're going to go through and we're going to walk through my daily driver. This is not my daily driver. This is a separate computer I use to record YouTube videos, and when I'm done, it gets erased. So I'm constantly formatting this thing, and it does not stay the way it was yesterday. I've had Windows on it. I've had 6 different flavors of Linux, that kind of thing. my main computer is also Debian, and it's also just been freshly upgraded to 13. And probably here in the next week or so, maybe we'll do a desktop walkthrough, and I will show you what my installation looks like, some of the applications that I'm using, like the application I'm using to record this video, some of the things that I use to actually record a separate computer, that kind of thing. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you subscribe so you can get notified. But anyway, it's going to do 2 gigs of RAM here. Now on this right here, I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the drive on there. And we're going to mount that just right here. We're going to do ext4 and we're going to mount it on that slash. That's the root of the file system. I'm going to choose done. Okay, I can stop right here and continue on. It would just put everything all in that one drive, and it will leave this 500 gig drive alone. That's not what we want to do. What we're going to do is we're going to create one partition, and just next, and it automatically detected it wants to go on home. I don't have to put it on home. I can actually put it on any of these other ones I want. And if you got 50 drives or 10 drives or whatever, you can put each one of these on its own separate drive or partition and keep all of your data segregated. And if var, which is where your logs reside, if it fills up, you just won't be able to log anymore, but your computer will still boot, your system will still be stable. So it's not what I wanted. I want home. There we go. So ext4 home, and then we're done. Okay, so now I have my boot, swap, root, and home. This here is the USB thumb drive I'm booting off of. We're not going to touch it. And I can go ahead and move forward if I wanted to with that. In a previous video, I also showed how you can do this LVM, or Logical Volume Manager, where I put those 2 drives together and make one 750 gig partition. You can go that route too. This is the benefit of having a Type 2 Linux distribution. It's not as user-friendly as the Type 1s are, like Linux Mint or Ubuntu or Fedora. Type 2s are basically Debian, of course. You've got Arch, Void. There's a few other ones that require a little bit of knowledge to use the system correctly, or a lot of homework as you go through and learn how to use these. But we're going to go ahead and finish up here, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, as far as the installer goes, that's it. That's kind of the basic walkthrough of some of the more advanced things, if you will, that you can do. Like I said, you can still do the Lux with the encryption. You can do the LVM, which I've already covered in another video. There's all kinds of different things you can do with this. I can spend the next 5 years making videos on all of the different combinations that you can do with this Debian installer. And again, that's one of the beauties of the Type 2 Type 2 Linux distributions. What I'm going to do now is, while this is actually running, it actually might be almost done, so we'll give it a second. Basically, it's downloading the base image now, so it has something to boot into after it reboots. Give it a couple more minutes, 98%, and then we'll move on to the next stage. All right, so this screen, if you read the top there, where it says Debian Archive Mirror Country, this is asking you, where do you want to download your packages from? Like when you go and install a file, or when you go to install a program, where do you want to download those from? That's what it's asking here. Of course, I live in the United States, so I'm not going to get it from Switzerland. And then you can choose a mirror. I always just choose Debian. There's the top. And if you're not sure, go ahead and choose Debian and go from there. All right, this is asking if you have an HTTP proxy. If you do not know what an HTTP proxy is, there's a 99% chance you don't need it. So what it's doing now is it's writing the sources files, and it's getting those all synchronized, and now it's going to download some more, another portion of the operating system. Like I said, it's downloading some, it's asking you questions on some, it's downloading some more, because this is a very tiny net install. Like I said, this whole thing is less than a gig in size, and so it has to download all the packages. It's just big enough for the installer. It's kind of like Arch. Arch does the same thing. This is telemetry. It's asking if you want to supply anonymous statistics to the developers. It defaults to opt out, which is excellent. That's why no is highlighted. You can opt in if you want. There's nothing personal that is being logged. It's basically system information, what kind of motherboard, how much RAM, which packages you installed, and that kind of thing. Most people that I know select no here. Again, it's up to you. And as the instructions say, if you change your mind later, you can always run dpackage reconfigure and turn it on or off. So the next up is going to be task select. This is where we choose our desktop environment that we want. A little word of caution on here. If you keep this top one selected, the Debian desktop environment, and you take this one out here, where it looks like you deselected GNOME, you're going to get GNOME anyway, because that's the default. If you want something other than GNOME, then go ahead and put it in whatever. The last video I did KDE, because that's what I normally use. This time we're going to run the Cinnamon tab, and then we're going to go ahead and continue. Some of the options there at the bottom, or whether you want to do a web server or a SSH server. Most home users don't need that, so I went ahead and skipped the stuff at the bottom. So while this downloads and installs the 1621 packages, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. Okay, on the screen right here, what we have is we are almost done. Basically, what we need to do now is hit enter to reboot our system. It will go ahead and clean up, and it will do the reboot. Once it reboots, it will reboot into the new, freshly installed system that we just installed. And what we're going to do is, once it gets to the login screen, we're going to go ahead and break the video there. The next video, we are going to go ahead and go into Cinnamon. We will look our way around Cinnamon, and also we will learn how to start theming it. Cinnamon is the default desktop environment for Linux Mint. It's developed by the Mint team, so they are very familiar with it. However, it's available through other distributions like Debian, Ubuntu has it, and Arch has it. And so if you're familiar with Mint and you want to move away from Mint but want to keep Cinnamon, this is how you do that. And anyway, to be notified of when the next video will drop, make sure you click like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and we will see you in the next video.